Yeah,
give the spoiler warning. And
yeah. I think we're going into spoiler territory now.
If you haven't seen the film, tune off now. If you want to listen to any of the other segments from later on, but not risk skip through, the segments will be on YouTube. You can find each of them. But yeah, this is where we're going to dive in now, and this is your spoiler warning.
Yes. Okay, that was like 5 seconds. That's plenty of time for them to change their mind. Okay. Wow.
yeah, wow. So I'm just gonna. We've already talked about like how much we love the film, and I just want this. My reasoning why this was like a 9. There was only a couple of small gripes that I had, and they were all visual things. One is very minor, and it's just because of my creative brain that I spotted it. And it was like moments when he was on the motorbike and they do the close cut-ins of his face. There was none of like in the background, the lights are flashing past, but like the lighting on him never changed, and that's just a visual thing that I spotted. The one main thing that bothered me was the wingsuit moment.
Really?
So I love the way that they did that, and like the way that it was a wingsuit and not just his cape. I love that. But the moment when he's flying through the sit down and then it does a close cutting on his face, this might just be the way my brain is created, because I understand some of the creative side of things. It pulled me out because it just screamed guy led on a box on a green screen.
I get that.
Just that split moment kind of pulled me out, and that was my only kind of gripe. And it could just be like it was one of the shots they didn't spend too much on VFX on or whatever, like the way they chose to do it. I don't know. It was just like my one small thing that kind of pulled me out of it a little bit.
I think that's fair. So obviously we were just talking about Alfred and how I wanted more screen time from him. So I said I understand why for the themes it made sense for him to not be that much in it, and that's because the whole part of this film was almost Batman learning he can't do it all himself.
Yeah.
He relies on Catwoman a little bit, he relies on Jim Gordon a little bit, he relies on Alfred a little bit, and then at the end of the film he's like, he understands that hope is a part of the Batman that is needed.
Yeah.
And also how beautiful is that scene where he's leading everyone out after the flood.
Yeah, right at the end.
Just beautiful.
So well done. Shows like that transition moment in his like character.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to remember the people of Gotham in the comics view Batman very differently to everyone in the country. In the country, they view him as this dangerous vigilante who just attacks people like a madman. Whereas in Gotham, at the schools and it like in the places, the community discuss, I almost got mugged last week, but Batman saved me.
Yeah, on a local level, they have a better understanding of him.
Yes. They know that he is there to help them and to protect them as best he can. So I think that's never really been shown that well. But I really think in this story they managed to nail down why the people of Gotham care about the Batman.
Yeah. I think and I think they'll do that really well carrying forward, because like you saw at the start of the film, it was like the news, like the shot of the news anchors or whatever, and they were saying like there's a vigilante running around running things. I think they'll really, if they in future films, they flesh out things more. I think they'll really show well like how the news portrays him as this vigilante, but at the local level, they kind of, because of what happened in this film, like the local level, they'll remember that and know that he was there to help.
Exactly. I think it also showed us how the Bruce Wayne playboy persona is necessary to Batman's success.
Yeah, he needs to lean, like he does still need that side of things.
Yeah. And this is what I think this might have thrown people slightly, but I think it's a really good way to show how Batman isn't from day one the best superhero knocking about who knows everything.
No.
He like I think they say he's been doing this for like 2 years at the beginning of this,
Yeah.
and he still hasn't worked out that by yourself in a dark room isn't the way to do it.
Yeah, he's still. I think, especially the first half of the film, is definitely his attitude is he can just go in and figure it out and it'll work out. But he
Yes.
learns that doesn't really work, and then it's he talks about like that attitude change of like he doesn't care for his own life, but then when Alfred gets hurt, he realizes there are people important to him, and I think that was a really important like shift in his mentality of okay, there is that need for other people, and I do care for the other people that are around me, so I can't just be going full Batman mode and ignoring everything else, if that makes sense.
So I saw obviously people discussing it, and superheroes have always been, in my opinion, when done right, a really good way to showcase diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you think of Batman, you don't necessarily think of him as someone who covers diversity because he's a rich white guy. But I've seen a lot of people going, the way Robert Pattinson has played the Batman, it almost feels like he's got autism.
Yeah, I get what you mean. There's like it's hard to place what it was he was doing that made him feel so different.
Because he was definitely lacking social skills. He had no interest in interacting with people. He was focusing on what he was doing, and it was minimal eye contact, just focusing on what he's doing and who he's doing it with and what he needs to worry about. And the only person that could like break that attention was this woman. And it's not like Bruce Wayne has never seen a gorgeous woman before.
Yeah. Do you know what I think it kind of is? Is like we've seen the Playboy Bruce Wayne. Like we've seen it loads. But the issue I think with like a very Playboy heavy Bruce Wayne character is it kind of doesn't add up to the trauma that he would have had as a child.
Mm,
Like, yes, you're some rich guy, but at the end of the day, like the trauma that he goes through as a kid losing his parents, like he is going to become more closed off and closed. And it doesn't matter if he has all this money. So, like, yeah, he's going to,
yeah.
because of that, he's going to lack certain social skills. And I think
The
Robert
Playboy
Pattinson,
persona was almost just to keep Gotham happy.
mm,
It,
yeah,
it,
you,
it's just
you got the sense in this that was like, I don't care. Like, yeah, I'm rich, but I really don't care for that persona and that having to put on that front because he just like
exactly.
it's not an important thing to him. And I think he
'Cause,
sold that side of it really well.
yeah. In the comics, he regularly uses Bruce Wayne to like interact with your penguins and stuff.
Mm,
Then like them career criminals that like push drugs and launder money and mess with the power of the city. Bruce Wayne was always able to interact with them people because of his money and his
yeah,
power, which is why he came up with this kind of playboy persona. Because if Rich Arthur, who lost his parents, is looking to score drugs, no one's surprised.
yeah. And I think I feel like we saw that, like that sudden. There was the moment where he realized he needed to go in as Bruce Wayne into the club. He couldn't just go in as Batman,
Uh huh.
and that opened more doors for him. So I guess it's kind of like he in this film we even saw that of like him coming to realize that okay, this Bruce Wayne
That Yeah, there's
side of me
usefulness to it.
has its uses and I can't keep ignoring that side of my life because it helps. There's benefit
Exactly.
to it.
Um, but I just and like, maybe I haven't said it enough on here, but Hori knows I hate any kind of gatekeeping of superheroes. I think superheroes are for everyone. What I'm gonna say, and maybe Hori can help me if I don't phrase it correctly, is if you don't like this film, I don't think Batman is the superhero for you.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
I get what you're saying. It's
I
kind of
think this is the truest telling of this character. So if you didn't like this character in this form, I don't actually necessarily think you like this character as they are, but rather the way we've kind of been shown him in modern media. And I think maybe a different superhero is who you should be looking at to fill in
yeah.
that kind of a gap.
I think anybody that is viewing this film and going, "Oh, this isn't a Batman film," clearly doesn't or hasn't experienced actually what Batman is like as a character, because maybe necessarily their only experience of Batman is Christian Bale's Batman, or even just the animated series and stuff like that, where it has been kind of deviates enough, but not like too far away from like the true kind of core of Batman. And I think, as you said, this film is probably the truest, like, cinematic form of a Batman character that we've seen. Just in the way that, like, of how he really portrayed kind of like the core parts of Batman and what Batman is about. Whereas other films, they've kind of lent on certain aspects and ignored others. Yeah, I think it's one of those where you it's understandable why some people are not used to this Batman if all they've experienced is The Dark Knight and Christian Bale. But also, like, those people then shouldn't be saying this isn't Batman, because it is more Batman than they realize.
Yeah, it's the most Batman we've ever seen outside of the comic book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like, no other Batman we've seen would you be able to look at that person and go, oh, they've adopted an 8-year-old boy and turned him into a crime fighter over the process of 3 or 4 years. I could definitely see in the sequel to this film them having an 11-year-old playing Robin.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't find yourself going, that looks weird in the sense of, oh, that makes no sense for this character. Instead, you look at it and go, that's weird for the reason it is weird of why the fuck would you let an 11-year-old go out and fight these hardened criminals?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people seem to forget about. But I don't want to go too much further than the film, because I think we said next week or the week after, once we've had some time to put it together, me and you are both going to talk about how we'd like to see this trilogy go.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of reasons to be excited for this iteration of Batman.
Mhm.
I think Matt Reeves. I don't like the phrase, oh, Matt Reeves gets the character, because at the end of the day, they're telling their version of the character every time. I do like Matt Reeves' interpretation of the character.
Yeah. He's clearly shown he has a strong understanding of the character to be able to adapt it into his interpretation.
Exactly. I think his writing really suits Robert Patterson's acting abilities. And I really like how they interact with one another.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the actor's name, and I hate that I've forgotten his name. The actor who plays Jim Gordon.
I can't remember
I
either.
think he was absolutely phenomenal as Jim Gordon. I'm a huge Gary Oldman fan as Jim Gordon. That might be my favourite interpretation of Jim Gordon. Granted, we didn't get to see the anti-Batman Jim
Jeffrey
Gordon,
Wright?
but
Jeffrey
there we
Wright.
go. Thank you. But
Quick
he's been
Google.
doing it for 2 years, so Jim Gordon's very aware of the corruption in the GCPD. He knows Batman's one of the good guys, and he's working alongside him and risking his badge like Jim Gordon would and does.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed that kind of kinship we felt there.
Yeah, we felt they really. There was a lot of different things they did, but like that was definitely one of them where they really sold that this Batman's been around for a couple of years. Like helped sell that idea that he is new, but he's been about. There was like already that very well established kind of trust and I understanding between the two of them that really sold that relationship. I'm excited to see how that develops over time, and like the
Okay.
Jim Gordon character.
So I think I've only got two more things I really want to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go for this one first. What was your favourite scene?
What was my favorite scene?
Yeah, I think you're going to have the same answer as me, but we'll see.
I think I'd probably say, because it's the first thing that kind of comes to mind when you said that, is the moment the Batmobile got revealed.
The car chase.
Yeah, so this from the start point where they suddenly get spotted and they spray the shit out of the car and he drops, and then it does the whole like in the shadows the Batmobile starts revving up. You hear like the jet engine side of the Batmobile building up, and that whole build up and then turning into the car chase. That honestly probably is the favorite point of the scene. Point of the film.
I adored the car chase. Apart from the fact it was the major bit of action for the film. It also, I think there was some really good acting in it. I know it sounds stupid because there was no dialogue, or there wasn't really any dialogue, but Colin Farrell's Penguin showing the range of emotions while getting chased by Batman, and just Robert Pattinson's steel face as he's concentrating and chasing chasing the Penguin down and then ripping him out of his car. Wow. I think that right there was the essence that you want from a Batman interaction.
Yeah, because you really, as him as the Penguin, you really saw kind of him go from he went through like anger to kind of psychotic sort of joy at one point to then, oh shit, fear. Yeah, he really sold that kind of chase, or like sold the idea of he realizes what he's trying to escape from, but he also kind of loves it. I have a fun fact about the Batmobile.
Go on.
So back in uni doing 3D
Is it that
stuff,
you've got me one?
No, I wish I had one. I know what artist designed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know them personally, but I know of him. Back in uni when I was doing my 3D design and stuff, it was an artist I came across and I followed because he has done, and he does UI. He's done a lot of UI stuff in films. So, like an example, one of the ones I know he worked on was James Bond and Quantum of Solace. So like a lot of the stuff that's like on the screens in like films where they've got to kind of make up the story behind the data and all that interface stuff. Like he's done that. He's also done loads of 3D work. But he put up a post, he's called Ash Thorpe, and he put up a post kind of finally, because he's like, I can finally talk about this. But he fully designed the Batmobile, 3D modeled it, like came up with the design from scratch. And I think he said it's he started off with a Dodge Charger, I think.
Yeah.
And then he did a little post like kind of explaining it. And he was saying he went through the mindset of, if Bruce had this in a garage, how would he build the car? Like how would it come together? And then he's also hidden lots of little Batman iconography in it. And he shows a render he has. If you look at the Batmobile from the back, the way that the bodywork and everything looks, it looks like the silhouette of the Batman silhouette. So like he baked in like deep iconography into the actual Batmobile. which I thought
It's
was cool.
it's it is my favourite live action Batmobile.
Oh, same. It looks.
Um, it is so good. It fits the character and the tone of the film perfectly. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that Batmobile would work in the Dark Knight trilogy. It would make no sense, and therefore I don't think I'd like it as much. I think this is the most purpose-built Batmobile we've seen,
Yeah,
and it fits in best.
It does. It really like Ashthorpe, the designer guy. He really nailed it, and he said that he's been a huge Batman fan all his life, so he really leaned into kind of understanding where the car would have come from. So I think he nailed it, and I think them taking his design and actually turning it into the car we saw, they did a great job. And I know that
Oh,
Robert Pattinson
absolutely.
has said that he. So it was obviously after those car chase scenes where he was getting to drive it that they called cut and then he carried on driving and drove it around the block because he was enjoying the car so much. Like,
Yeah.
jealous. I'd love to drive it.
Okay. And my other point is something obviously we can't avoid anymore. The cameo at the end of the film.
The Joker.
The Joker. Are you aware of who was playing him in that cameo?
You've told me because I'm guessing it's the person that you said that was rumored,
Yeah.
and I can't remember who that is.
I
I'm a
always
prick.
fuck up the pronunciation of his last name. Barry Keoghan. He played Druig in Eternals.
That was it.
Irish actor. I'm so sorry if I butchered his last name. There's too many letters and I'm dumb. I really liked it.
Yeah, like it was such a small kind of snippet of this Joker, but
So,
you got the feel that it was the Joker.
did you see Matt Reeves' interview about said cameo?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so he's given us some details about him.
Okay.
So, he's not the Joker yet.
Okay.
He is a serial killer the Batman has already fought and incarcerated in Arkham, who has I forget the term. It's like a condition. Disfigured. Jesus Christ, sorry
Oh.
guys. He has a disfigurement that means his face is stuck in a constant smile. So they're not going for scars this time.
Okay.
His muscles have seized and
Right.
pulled his face into a smile.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't yet become the Joker, but he's on that track. Him and the Batman have interacted before, so there's history there, which means we get to skip out a little bit of them getting to know each other, which I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's because I'm too used to Marvel films. I don't know. That seemed to interrupt the tone slightly right at the end of wrapping stuff up.
I get what you mean. It's the sort of thing we expect to see as a post-credit scene.
I would have even been okay if it was just the very last scene of the film and not done as the post credits. But the fact that we've gone into Arkham, seen this interaction, and then we come back out to see Batman interacting with Catwoman.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Just felt a bit strange to me. And maybe it was just me. Maybe it's me being nitpicky. But hey, someone's got to be nitpicky. The internet loves this film.
Yeah, it was one of those where it's like, I guess because they'd already been in Arkham because of that's where the Riddler ends up, they were kind of trying to they obviously felt like because they were there with that stuff to just tie it in then, so they're not coming back again to Arkham.
Yeah. I get that. It just felt like tonally it threw me off for a second.
Yeah.
It was, don't get me wrong, it's not a huge issue. I just would have liked to have potentially seen it put in a slightly different place, I think. But overall, I think Barry can do a very good job. and I'm curious to see, based on the way that the Riddler and the Penguin have been written, I'm curious to see how Matt Reeves would use the Joker. But at the same time, Batman has a brilliant rogues gallery, and we've had a lot of Joker. I hate saying this because I'm not, but I'm bordering on bored of him.
I know we've said we'll probably talk about this in the next episode or the one after, whatever. But just to slightly touch, I don't know if we see this Joker in the next film. I think we see it later on.
Yeah, and if it's like another 3 years before the next one, then 3 years after that, and we've had 6 years of no Joker, and then we come back, I'm okay with that. But if they're looking at like 1.5 year turnovers or some stuff, and he's in the sequel, then I have a problem.
Yeah, I get that. I think the only reason I say that is because of the way he interacted with the Riddler at the end, being like, "You have a friend." I wonder if it's more like setting up this idea of like some of the villains are all gonna get to know each other.
Yeah, no, I'm here for that.
I would like to say I'm pretty sure we can safely say that we were right on a lot of things that we predicted.
Yeah.
I know we discussed about the idea of the Penguin being the middleman and not necessarily being a villain, and I feel like we were right on that.
Yeah. What I also enjoyed, sorry, and I've completely forgotten this. It's kind of, I don't want to call it a trope because trope always carries like a negative connotation. It's always kind of a theme in like detective films. So it's a bit of a whodunit, and you don't know who the bad guy is. But obviously, we knew who the bad guy was all along. It's the Riddler. So I was kind of curious how if they were gonna be able to pull off a whodunit kind of feel, and they did with the whole "Who is the rat?"
Yeah,
and I really enjoyed the way they did that. I don't think people are giving that storytelling enough credit.
I think people have forgot to focus or discuss that point. I totally agree, and now you've mentioned it like that, there was definitely points where like I was like, oh, and this is spoilers, which we're fine to say anyway at this point, but I fully thought it was going to be the Penguin.
Yeah, that's what we were supposed to think.
We were being led to be the Penguin. I'm like, this makes total sense. It's got to be. And then it wasn't. And I'm like, what the fuck is the rat then?
And then they were talking about it being like a bird and whatever, and it's like, oh, it's the penguin. And then they set you up beautifully, and then it's like the falcon. And the beauty of it is, it's not a difficult like little riddle. Anyone should be able to put it together. But because of the penguin being there, and the penguin being a bird, and the penguin being a very big part of the film and the rogues gallery, your brain instantly goes, "It's the penguin." When actually you've got Falcon sitting right there.
And I'm pretty sure at this point, like Falcone had already been mentioned, but like we just
because into a
and I mean it's obviously the way that they've done it, and it's filmmaking, like because they're talking about it must be the penguin that put like penguins have wings, like it automatically directs our focus that way, and you don't click straight away that like, oh shit, it could be someone else.
Well, I think there was a really nice balance, and although it wasn't, I know people are saying it had made them chuckle a couple of times. It wasn't a particularly funny film. Thumb Drive made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, the Thumb Drive was great. I loved.
I chuckled quite audibly.
Like things with like the riddles and hidden things, like parts of his riddles that were just funny and very clever and made total sense as to why the Riddler would do such things. Like the whole Thumb Drive, it was funny, but like it's like, yeah, of course he's
on brand.
Like that just screams Riddler. So
had Batman impersonation come in, but watching Robert Pattinson lift up a thumb and go Thumb Drive, it was just funny. It just is. There's something funny about it. In a really dark, gruesome way. You just find going, that's quite good from the Riddler, that is.
And then he goes, oh, it's encrypted. And he's like, try the thumb. and then it reveals a thumbprint thing. It all that then makes it like, oh well, of course the thumb's there. Like it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So one other thing, and I touched on it slightly in the non-spoiler part, but like the visual language of this film, I
Oh,
think
it's unparalleled.
this is the best version of Gotham we've ever seen.
Oh, without a doubt.
I love that they were able to sell the idea of it felt modern and relatable enough with certain technology, but it still had that gothic feel that Gotham's supposed to have. And like with the whole Wayne Tower was very gothic architecture and felt I think I loved that more than the idea of him being in a mansion in the middle of nowhere. Like
Yeah,
I love the idea of him being in like this gothic like apartment at the top of Wayne Tower or whatever. I also really loved the way that they sold Batman's tech, in that it felt very, I guess, futuristic or top of the line sort of tech, which is what it's meant to be for Batman. Like he's meant to have like this
modern.
grits, but it felt analog. Like it didn't feel like it was out of place in
Yeah,
the Gotham that they were building. It all felt like high tech, but still had an analog feel. Like the whole thing with the contact lens, but like he was
yeah,
watching it on like almost like slide film esque
yeah,
way of viewing it and printing stuff out. Like I think that was really well done and really well told and sold.
yeah. It's top of the line, but Bruce hasn't managed to get it perfect yet.
Yeah, and it still feels like it fits in the world that they're building. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
feel out of place at
absolutely.
all.
Um,
Um,
I especially loved the entrance of him at the beginning of the film, where you see all these people committing crimes, just like scared of like the darkness in the corner once they see the bat signal.
yeah, I love the.
That is Batman's grip on the city. Criminals are up to no good. They see the light go on. They see a dark corner where nothing's moving, and they find themselves going, "It's too dark and still over there."
Yeah, it makes
And then
them.
they
It's
psych
that
themselves
guilty
out.
conscious. Yeah, they're like,
Yeah,
I know I've just done something that he would screw someone up for. I also
exactly.
really loved the way that that opening scene is him writing his diary, and
Hmm.
it's him like narrating what basically what he's just gone on for the night, and the idea of like he very clearly explains that like he can't be everywhere, and he has to pick his targets, and like that idea that like, oh, why does this happen? Why didn't the Batman just go and help him? It's like, well, crime's happening everywhere. Like he can't be everywhere.
Yeah,
Um,
he just needs people to think he's everywhere.
yeah, and they really sold that at the start of the film. I love how as well it showed year 2 October on the diary front cover.
Yeah.
That he's like keeping a diary for every month.
Well, I think that's a really easy way to show how obsessed he is with this.
Yeah, and like the detailed and detective side of things.
Because was the title of it also not the Gotham Project or something?
Yes, it was. It was Gotham Project year 2 October. Um,
And, and I just think that really, really shows the level of obsession.
hmm. I
Um,
also we haven't really talked about it, but I liked how we said like we hoped Alfred is like a helping hand in things, like actual
mhm.
Batman films. And there's that part where like he comes up after he's had a shower or whatever, and he's full on deciphering a code because of his army days. And
Yeah.
like that's what he knows, and like that kind of he can't help himself but kind of dive into it as well and help him out. I love that they
And
showed
do
that.
you know what I loved most about that? The fact that he didn't quite get it, but he gave Bruce what he needed to get there.
Yeah.
That was masterfully done. It's a
And
case of, okay, Alfred is really helpful and brilliantly intelligent and fantastic, but you know what? Bruce is still just that little bit better.
yeah, and kind of maybe in the sense of like Bruce just has that slight better understanding of how these villains of Gotham work. Like Alfred, how he has the skills and the knowledge, but like his is from military times, like different
Yeah.
thinking.
Bruce is just as mentally screwed up as the Riddler.
Yeah, I also love that how we talked about in the character profile for Riddler, that I think is more like he's trying to emulate the Batman, and then they fully sold that perfectly in this, of that he was like, we are the same, and then realizes that that's not the case, and then gets upset.
It was really, really good.